Hello, everybody, and welcome back to coverage of the Super League Championships. I'm Kenji Egashira. That is Paul, the Step Links Rietzel. Our next match is between Eric Froehlich and Randy Buehler. And what do you think about this matchup, Paul?
Yeah, it's kind of a classic matchup in standard these days. We saw it very famously in the quarterfinals of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar when John Finkel played against Paulo Vitor Damo de Rosa. It's going to be Randy and his red creatures and his teamer battle rages and become immenses, trying to get through 20 before Eric's much more powerful gold cards from his Dark Jeskai deck take the game over. So Eric's going to have to maneuver very carefully to make sure that he doesn't just die out of nowhere.
Now, I hear that a lot of people think Dark Jeskai deck has a pretty good matchup, even pre-board versus decks like Atarka Red. What do you think the percentage is, if you could put a percentage on it, is?
Everyone. Well, there's a saying in the fight game in combat sports that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. I think that's kind of similar to in Magic with red decks. People think that they have this great matchup against red decks, and then all of a sudden they're at 13 facing down 3 creatures, and all of a sudden all of their genius dispels and Ojutai's commands don't look so brilliant anymore. So, Eric's going to have to be very delicate about sequencing not only his early plays but also his mana base, because obviously the Jeskai deck has an extremely greedy mana base. So I favor Eric, but just slightly, and certainly as Sean alluded to in the previous match, the die roll can be very critical here, and certainly if Randy's on the play and Eric doesn't have a perfect draw, it's pretty difficult for Eric to win. And also, if you notice, Eric does not have any copies of Surge of Righteousness in his 75, so that's a major factor in him not having additional edge post sideboard.
Yeah, if we can pull up Eric's list real quick, we can see what he's working with. I know he's opted not to run any of the Tri-lands, no Mystic Monasteries, no Nomad Outpost, instead going with the 4 Evolving Wilds. And I think that's something that's a little bit different than what people usually see in the mana base for this Dark Jeskai list. Do you think that's something that's a good thing, or is it going to hurt him a little bit?
Well, he's trying to support 3 Tasigur, the Golden Fang. I think that he's correctly identified that that's a really, really powerful card in a lot of different matchups. The Esper decks that are trying to use Languish in order to control your creatures. Against red decks, it's very useful to be able to cast multiple spells in a turn. And in some of the grindier mid-range matchups, the ability to play a Tasigur on turn 5 and leave up 4 mana is really powerful as well. So, he's kind of maxing out on fetch lands in order to make his mana base work. We've seen other people, as you mentioned, play Mystic Monastery, or they'll dip into Battlefield Forge or Shivan Reef. I certainly haven't seen this much of reliance on finding those basic lands, and we might find here that specifically having those become into play tap lands where maybe otherwise they would be Shivan Reefs or Battlefield Forges could end up hurting him against a deck like a Targa Red.
Yeah, it was in Eric's suggestion that I put a few Evolving Wilds into my deck list, although that didn't seem to help out too much in my match against Patrick over there. He has a 1 roast in the main deck. I think that's kind of cool. Does get those random siege rhinos or whatever.
I love a lot of the things that Eric is doing here. I mean, certainly, when you look at 4 Fiery Impulse and 3 Dispel, that's the ability to interact cheaply and kind of effectively against Randy's strategy is extremely strong, both from the sense of taking over the game, but also because Randy can almost never feel safe. I mean, if Eric has 1 mana open, he can disrupt basically any part of the combo. The Roast is probably not going to be the most effective card in this particular matchup, although trading 1 for 1 for a McKindy Slide Runner or something like that is not the worst thing in the world, because as you see, obviously, with a bunch of mythics, rares, and gold cards, as we get later in the game, Eric should be able to take over. So it's really about just trading off resources and making sure he doesn't get comboed out until we get to that stretch of the game.
Yeah, no Fire Drinker Satyr for that roast to Alava Axe Randy with. If we could go over to Randy's deck list, we can take a look at what he's working with now. Let's see if he has any sweet innovations. He has a Yasova in the main deck, as well as 2 Flame Flamewake Phoenix is. That's a little bit different than the usual Atarka Red, I think.
Yeah, I love the spice here. I love the Flamewake Phoenixes. It's a card that I've seen people starting to adopt on Magic Online. It's a card that I'm pretty excited to see in this particular matchup. Again, between Abbot of Carol Keep, McKindy Slide Runner, the Swift Spear, your Become Immenses, Atarka's Command, and the Dragon Claw itself, there's many ways for Flamewake Phoenix to recur. And then obviously just being able to fly over a Tasigur is pretty effective as well. So I think it's an interesting innovation, and certainly gives him another angle as he tries to rely on that combo to be able to get through. In that case, what would be 16 damage. So it's definitely a card that I like the usage of.
Yeah, that's some great insight into the Atarka Red deck. Do you think it's more important for him, or what are the important spells for him to draw, will be it creature or instant? Obviously, he'd like to have a 1-drop into a 2-drop and then maybe some spells afterwards, but what are the spells that he really wants to see in his hand?
Well, it's really for him about making sure that his deck is actually fairly redundant, with the exception of a few particular cards. So it's really about making sure that he hits his curve correctly. So that means a Bell Striker or a Swift Spear on 1, and then ideally really on 2, either playing 2 more additional 1-drops or a Slide Runner, and then saving things like Abbot and the spells to support the deck after that. So the 1-drop is really the key. I mean, you can't overstate the importance of having a 1 casting cost creature in his opening hand. His win rate just plummets when he has to say go on turn 1 because Eric so easily deals with his 2-drop creatures with a wide array of burn spells. So the one thing to look out for as we get to the mid game is to make sure he doesn't draw too many lands. He just can't use lands 4, 5, and 6 too effectively, with the exception of triggering landfall. And then in terms of the late game, he's dead. So he should try to not get to the late game if he can possibly avoid it.
Yeah, speaking of those 1-drops, you usually see a few Lightning Berserkers in the main deck here. Randy's opted to go 2 in the sideboard, and I see 3 Hooting and the Blowfish Mandrills sitting over there. I don't know about those. What do you think? What do you think about those Hooting Mandrills?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, Eric only has 2 copies of Crackling Doom in his deck. He's elected to go with other removal spells. So against most versions of Dark Jeskai, I don't love the idea of Hooting Mandrill, since it matches up poorly with Tasigur the Golden Fang, and obviously can die to Crackling Doom. I'll be interesting to note whether or not Randy brings them in this particular matchup. I don't know, and I haven't played enough of the matchup to be certain. Although certainly when I see that he only has 2 Crackling Dooms, that certainly isn't some incentive there to try it out.
Yeah, great point. It looks like the players are ready, so let's go down to the match, and we'll bring it right back, you guys. Hello, friends. Welcome back to coverage of the Super League Championships. We are in round 5 of 6 matches. The match between Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, running Atarka Red, and fellow Hall of Famer Eric Froehlich on Is It Oreos, also known as Dark Jeskai. What do you think about these players' hands right now, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, we talked earlier in the pregame about Randy's need to have a 1-drop, ideally multiple 1-drops. He has that. Randy's got to be very happy with his opening hand. Eric's hand is a little bit slow, and as you see, he's chosen to mulligan it into another very poor hand, although it's possible that he may need to keep this hand just because 5-card hands are so weak with the Scribe. Interesting to see kind of what he does here, but Eric's certainly way on the back foot, mulliganing to a poor 6.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Randy's hand looks completely stacked. And the awkward thing is, if Eric opted to keep his hand, his only land in hand was an Evolving Wilds, and he's on the play. So even if he sees a land on top, he cannot get that turn 2 Jace.
Right.
Well, his 5 looks a lot better than any of the others he has. 3 lands, including a Fiery Impulse and a Mantis Rider.
Yeah, and as it stands right now, Randy does not have a removal spell that kills the Mantis Rider. So, if Eric can find some additional ways to interact, he can get the game to the mid game. But I don't know. It's difficult to imagine beating a hand as strong as Randy's with 5 cards.
Yeah, and Titan Strength on the Monastery Swift Spear kind of acts like a pretty good removal spell versus a Mantis Rider.
That's right.
All right, let's see. Eric got a Smoldering Marsh there with his Bloodstained Mire. Looks like he's going to lead out with the Polluted Delta now. Soulfire Grandmaster the draw. Looks like he's just happy to pass here.
Yeah, he's going to set up a Prairie Stream combined with the island to cast a Soulfire Grandmaster and then be able to gain life off this Fiery Impulse or play the Mantis Rider depending on how the game develops. We see a potential window here with, Randy not having additional lands that he might get a little constrained on mana, although the particular hand that he has doesn't require very many lands to operate. So it'd be really interesting to see how Eric navigates these next couple turns, because a significant percentage of his lines result in him getting absolutely obliterated.
Sure. Now, so Windswept Heath only can get the Cinderglade, which would have entered the battlefield tapped. Was there any merit for Eric to use the Fiery Impulse there, or it looks like he would rather just get the 2 life off the Soulfire Grandmaster? I'll pretend I'm Paul Rizzo for a second, as we have some connectivity issues. Well, Kenji, I assume that my play was more correct, and yes, and I'm going to have to agree with you, Mr. Rizzo, as you are the Hall of Famer. Oh, thank you, Kenji. So looks like Eric's going to make that play. Play the Soulfire Grandmaster, pop off the Fiery Impulse, taking care of that Swift Spear on his own turn so that Randy cannot use it to demolish him, blow him out in combat. Randy's draw for the turn being that Wooded Foothills. Pretty important draw. Another land is going to allow him to cast multiple spells this turn. He did end of turn pop off that Windswept Heath and get a Cinderglade. We have a nice Koala in place there of Mr. Paul Rizzo. Cannot say it's going to add as much to the conversation, but, well, it doesn't need to drink any water. How about that? Get its eucalyptus leaves and whatnot. All right. Looks like Randy's going to go with the Wild Slash, killing the Soulfire Grandmaster. That makes complete sense, right? The Wild Slash, if he's going to aim it anywhere, it's going to be at a creature unless he's going for the final few points of burn. I would be interested to see if Randy wants to use a Titan Strength or 2 here, while the shields are down for Eric. Well, again, he's on a molt of 5. All right, looks like Randy's going to go ahead and pop off that Titan Strength. Cannot tell whether he's scrying top or bottom, but it's going to get in for at least 5 points of damage here. Doesn't have that extra untapped land to Teamer Battle Rage for the Wombo combo, get in for 10 points, but getting in for 5 and getting a scry is certainly quite nice. He's looking for another threat. He only has the 1 Zergo right now, and if that was dealt with, he would be in a bit of trouble. This Mantis Rider already going to cause a bit of trouble, although unbeknownst to Eric, Randy does have another Titan Strength plus that Teamer Battle Rage, as mentioned prior.
Can you hear me?
Mantis Rider. I can hear you now. He's back.
I'm
my
back.
Gosh.
I lost internet for a second there. But
it was so lonely without you. We had a koala, and he didn't say anything, and I was really worried.
I think that my Skype has a duration of time at which it will work, and then eventually it just dies. So I should probably just log on right before I'm about to do coverage.
Makes sense.
I do like my new picture, though.
Your ears got very large. Can you see the screen? Do you see what's happening?
The video on. I can see it. Yeah, I see that somehow Eric still has life left. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, so Randy just didn't draw any more threats after that Swift Spear got killed by Eric's Fiery Impulse.
Mm-hmm.
But Eric is getting Wombo comboed out. Titan Strength into Teamer Battle Rage. Going to kill the Mantis Rider, save the Zergo, and put Eric to 5.
Now, I'm a little rattled because of my internet problems, but he is at 5 life and facing an Atarka's Command and a Wild Slash. That's not an ideal situation to be in if I'm
this
doing
is
the math
accurate.
correctly. Yeah.
He does have 3 Dispels in the main deck, I believe.
Yeah.
But, if you're Randy, you just go for it here?
Well, here it's actually interesting here because if he goes for it via Become Immense, then Eric will respond with Fiery Impulse.
Oh, he drew a Become Immense for the turn. Wow. Okay.
That was the worst draw in the deck because it was the only card that could make him do something or not win the game.
Yeah, it kind of baits him into it, doesn't it? We'll see what he opts for. Oof. A Okay, so
Okay,
Eric's
well,
doing this prior to blockers, and with no cards in hand, Randy knows that he has lethal, or should.
yes. But he's going to give him a little bit of a slow roll here, which I really appreciate between two Hall of Famers.
I'm sure Eric appreciates it more than anyone.
Oh yeah, Eric is a student of the game and a connoisseur of style as well. So I think he'll take this in stride.
Maybe in this instance, a Tarka Red is going to be Christmas Oreos or Christmas milk, and Eric Froehlich's Is It Oreos are just gonna dissolve.
Randy could be trying to time this perfectly with the Royals walking off on Eric's Mets to give him the double win.
Oh, that's right. You guys are both double queued.
Yeah.
All right. Come on, Randy. He doesn't have any cards in hand. Just do it. He wants to kill his Jace first. Oh gosh.
The best part about this, honestly, is that whenever you're in the situation on Magic Online, of course, you assume you're dead 100%. And when they take 13 to 15 seconds, like, wow, I'm actually going to get another turn. This is fantastic.
Yep.
And then, sure enough, 25 seconds later, that is a doornail. So we see Randy immediately go to those hooting mandrills. So that answers that question.
Oh yeah, I guess he did. How many? Let's see. How many Crackling Dooms is Eric running? Is he running the 2 or 3?
He has 2 main, and that's all he has. So
okay.
You're really talking about the 2 Crackling Dooms and the roast as the effective ways to deal with hooting mandrills. And then of course, you can potentially utter end it, counter with Ojutai's command. You can try to get into it in terms of combat with the Tasigur, but combat against a Tarka Red is a really bad way to go.
Yeah, we saw him instantly bring in some of those Erishan clerics. Can't exactly tell what Randy's doing anymore. It looks like he took out some number of Titan Strength, Teamer Battle Rage, and Wild Slash, as well as Become Immense. So what's Randy's game plan going to game 2 that he's on the draw?
Yeah, so it looks like Randy is sideboarding out a significant chunk of the combo pieces, figuring that Eric's deck is going to be so stocked with interaction that he's going to get himself 2 for 1, too high of a percentage. So he's going big. He's going to go with the Flamewake Phoenixes and the Hooting Mandrills, and hope that he can catch Eric with a lot of less effective Fiery Impulses and Dispels and those sorts of things. And you see right at the last second, Eric hedged by shaving a Dispel. So as with a lot of different matchups in Standard right now, there's a real kind of shell game going on where people have to figure out what the other person is doing.
Yeah, I actually saw Eric take out a Jace as well, so he's down to 3 Jaces. All right, looks like a Flamewake Phoenix on the left-hand side of Randy Buehler's hand, who has a 1-drop and a Rending Volley, which is insane versus Mantis Rider, which conveniently for him, Eric has 2 of in his hand.
Yeah, Randy's hand is basically perfect. If he had another 1-drop or a 2-drop, he'd be much happier. But given his plan post-sideboard, to have a 1-drop, have one of his major threats, and plenty of interaction, he's got to be really happy with that.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But three mismatched mountains, no one can be happy with that. That's ugly.
It's the extra tilt factor.
Yeah.
All right. So he didn't Fiery Impulse on his turn, even though so he had an Evolving Wilds. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's why he didn't end to turn it. Randy drew a Abbott off the top. Hey, that's a pretty good one. As long as he draws a 2-drop, even if you're not getting value with the Abbott, you just want to produce a threat, and that's what he was able to do here.
Right. I mean, this game is going to be interesting because Eric's answers match up pretty well with Randy's threats this game, and he does not have a way to recur the Flamewake Phoenix after Abbott dies that we know about yet. So, what do you do here? Do you like Mantis Rider or Crackling Doom?
I would just go with the Mantis Rider and say show me, because even a Titan Strength doesn't save the Abbott versus the Mantis Rider, but it looks like Eric's going to go with the Crackling Doom.
Yeah, he's potentially playing around the Rending Volleys. Obviously, the players have deck lists here, and he knows that that's a possibility. It's also, as a heuristic to just keep in mind, whenever you can avoid trying to get into combat with this Atarka Red deck, it's usually a pretty good choice. So Eric's just erring on the side of, let me trade off my 1-for-1 spells, and then let's get to the the stage of the game where I can outpower.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so Eric's going to pop off that Crackling Doom prior to the Flamewake Phoenix resolving. Remember, Flamewake Phoenix has to attack each turn if able, whereas Abbott's a little bit scarier. Mantis Rider can eventually jump in front of the Flamewake, should he so choose to do so. I mean, if Eric finds a way to deal with that Flamewake, he should be looking.
The first Mantis Rider is going to eat that rending volley, but after that, he's going to be raising the situation where he's like trading off Flamewake Phoenix and Antarcus Command to trade for the second Mantis Rider, or hoping to draw into something else. Here we see, I mean, how good would a Hooting Mandrills be, right? If Randy could find one of those. So I guess we have our answer as to whether that's an effective card in this matchup.
Standard staple, limited all-star Hooting Mandrills. Not exactly in the hand of Randy Buehler currently.
Yeah. It's basically like Tassiger, but better. Because you can't
in the Atarka red deck.
Activate it. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll have to see what Eric draws for the turn. He is capable of going Mantis Rider and Jace. Arishan Cleric's not a terrible draw. Of course, it's a lot better in conjunction with Ojutai's Command should it die, but gains him a little bit of life.
Yeah, it's a really interesting card. When we first built white decks, obviously we put it in our sideboards because it's a card that you just want to have against red decks. Found out that when you play against Tarka Red, you can't really be blocking effectively, and so found out it's actually not that good. But then when you're using 3 Ojutai's commands, you're almost obligated to utilize it because the ability to gain 7 life is just, I mean, that's a ton of life. Even when people are double striking you, that's a ton of life.
Yeah. Although unbeknownst to Eric, Randy has 2 Atarka's commands, which can kind of neuter the life gain, in fact, dealing 3 to Eric if he's going to go that route. But Jace makes an obvious play here since Eric's still at 12 life. Looks like Randy's going to go ahead and just pop off the Jace while he has the chance.
And here we are in a classic part of the game in which the Atarka red deck has a window here where it's going to have a few turns that it needs to draw non-lands. 1 for 1 so far for Randy. But if Randy peels off a few lands here, it's a good chance that he's going to fall pretty far behind. If he can keep the spells coming and keep Eric under pressure, he could potentially, finish him off here.
Yeah, and this is an important turn as well because this forces Randy to use the Atarka's Command to save trade away his Flamewake Phoenix for the Mantis Rider. Now Eric can play the Arishan Cleric and gain 3, knowing that Atarka's Command isn't up if he wanted to. But he drew Ojutai's Command for the turn, and with Randy on no creatures, he's got to feel pretty confident holding that up for a counter.
Yeah, you imagine he's going to return Jace to play here and then gain 4 life. The 4 life's going to get countered by the Atarka's Command, but then that's going to give Eric a window to get the Arishan Cleric into play. So that's I think Eric's going to pull pretty far ahead here.
Yeah. Now on Eric's turn, do you just like flashing back the Ojutai's Command? Just trying to gain some more life if Randy goes for the Atarka's Command here?
Other options being nothing, right? So the options are, well, we'll see what he draws, but I don't know. It's pretty hard to imagine that being a bad option.
Oh, especially after he draws Fiery Impulse or Dispel to hold up.
Yeah, so he's going to go to 10, draw a card here, have a Dispel to protect his...
oh, jeez. You know what? He can discard the Arishan Cleric and bring it back with the Ojutai's Command holding up Dispel or Fire if he wanted. Although it looks like he doesn't go for that play.
Yeah, he's taking a conservative route here. He figures with Randy having 1 card in his hand, being able to tick up his Jace and protect that is the way to go. I mean, if you look at it, right, Eric doesn't have any ways to draw additional cards or gain additional advantage, so he wants to keep that Jace around for the medium haul. And that's...
I think that solidly puts Eric Froehlich way ahead on this game.
Yeah, so we are going to go to game 3 here. I think that one of the questions that we had about this game is how good was Hooting Mandrills going to be, and we saw in this game there were multiple turns where if Randy had drawn a Hooting Mandrills, he would have been able to kind of keep enough pressure on Eric to probably pull it off. Obviously it's too late now, but our question's answered as to whether that's an effective plan. It'll be interesting to see as we go into game 3. Does Randy bring back in the combo? Is he going to try to go with the Become Immense Team or Battle Rage plan, or does he continue to kind of stick to his guns? despite things not working out.
Yeah, like you mentioned, being on the play for both of these decks is so important. And if Randy's going to be on the play again, he might opt to go for a little quicker route. McKindy Slide Runner not going to do the trick here, especially not versus a 1-3. I
Right.
got to imagine Eric's pretty happy to see that off the top.
Right.
Looks
And
like he's gonna use-
if Eric were at like 6 here, you know, there would be some. There really actually would not be any hope here, even if he was at 6. But um, yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see what Randy does, because one thing that I do, and I don't know if it's right or not, it could be a huge leak, but I will kind of change my sideboarding plans depending on what works and what my opponent is doing a lot of the time. So, you know, for example, if I'm playing a deck and it has a bunch of cheap creatures that I can sideboard out, you know, I'll consider doing that if my opponent was able to deal with them, hoping to catch them with dead cards in the next game. And sometimes it makes sense to stick to your guns. So here we'll get a chance to watch 2 Hall of Famers adjust their sideboard strategies.
I think that's a really good point, though, that people often overlook. I think they have a set sideboard for a lot of decks. Oh, I'm going to be playing a Tarka Red. Well, this needs to come out, and this needs to come in. They don't often think about those sideboard mini games that occur in a matchup. All right, Monastery Swift Spear off the top. Eric's going to block it with Mantis Rider, Tarka's Command in response. And that's not going to do anything with Double Fiery Impulse in Eric's hand.
We actually see here an interesting, a unique weakness of the Atarka Red deck that's not normal of these red strategies, and that's that it has actually a deceptive lack of reach. Most of the spells that allow it to finish people from, say, 6 or 7 life require you to have a creature and have it be attacking and not die. Whereas maybe previous decks with things like Outpost Siege and Abbot of Carroll Keep could attempt to find multiple exquisite firecrafts or things of that nature and finish an opponent that way. This deck really needs to kill with creatures a high percentage of the time.
Yeah, let's see. If we're looking at the deck list here, 4 Titan Strength, 3 Temur Battle Rage, 3 Become Immense. Those are the spells that require a creature on the battlefield, whereas Wild Slash, Atarka's Command are the only true burn spells in this list. Looks like Randy Snap submitted.
Yeah, Randy's ready to go. He's in. We see Eric. It looks like is going to take another Jace out, which is reasonable. Going to be on the draw. You definitely don't want to draw multiple Jaces. You kind of want to have one out, but you're okay not having them as well.
Yeah, I think I saw him bring in either another Duress or another Dispel. No, there's a Hooting Mandrills from Randy's hand with
Swift
double.
Spear on the left.
Yep, certainly looks like that.
So Randy has a keeper certainly, and looks like Eric's going to be happy with his hand as well. So here we go.
Oh man, I'd almost be really tempted to mulligan that. I guess the roast does a lot of work, and then Koligan's Command. Sure.
It's just I don't think you can mulligan 2-drop, 3-drop interaction into Dig. I mean, it's definitely not an ideal hand for Eric, but it's too far above the average 6-card hand to consider a mulligan, I think.
Yeah, double early removal spell, double fetch. That's going to put a nice number of cards in the graveyard for that dig through time. We'll see what Randy wants to do here. He has already 2 green sources in his hand. Is it just better to thin out his deck, it looks like? Also gets cards in the graveyard.
Yeah, thin out his deck, but also, get to Hooting Mandrills ideally on turn 3 as quickly as possible. So
looks like another land. It looks like a swamp, I think. Polluted Delta. Yeah, basically a swamp. So Eric's just thinking about his sequencing here, I know, with the Is It Oreos / Dark Jeskai list. The order of the lands that you get is insane. Ooh, McKindy Slide Runner off the top for Randy.
Perfect draw for Randy. I mean, it's going to work out so well that he gets to play the Slide Runner. It's going to get roasted. Then he'll be able to fetch and play Hooting Mandrills on turn 3, which is out of the range of Koligan's Command. I mean, basically Worldly tutored that right to the top of his deck.
Newmont Gross.
Dating myself with that reference, I know, but...
Okay. Evolving Wilds off the top for Eric, so he's drawn double lands here.
As I said, Eric definitely should have mulliganed this hand. I knew that it was... it's not going to work out.
Well played, sir. Looks like Eric's actually not going to roast this turn. Wow. So what's the or thought process there?
Does he only have one island in his deck? It's the only thing I can think of.
That is a good question. Let me take a look here.
He does not have many lands, like actual lands that make mana.
No, he has 2 islands in the deck.
That I don't know why he didn't do that.
Huh.
Maybe check the game. I mean, did someone just bunt? It could be that he got distracted.
The other game, of course.
Oh my god! And Randy just continues to draw like very much perfectly off the top. I imagine he'll Wild Slash here to get additional damage in and put another card in his graveyard since Wild Slash doesn't kill any of Ephro's 3-drops anyway.
Yeah, correct. Wow.
Wild
So
Slash
Randy,
is a flame rift to your head. So yeah.
ooh, Randy actually going to go for the pop off the fetch here to pump up the McKindy Slide Runner into a 4/3, putting him a little bit susceptible to a burn spell there. But fortunately for him, Eric not having it. Eric's going to take 2, 4, 6, 10 damage this turn. Wow.
11.
Sorry, did I miss something?
No, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. 10. Or 6, 8, 10. Yeah.
Can't imagine Eric's in a good spot here. So, did he have? I don't think he has Radiant Flames in the sideboard. And if he, oh, he does. He have two in the sideboard. I don't think he brought them in though. Jace off the top is not Radiant Flames. Eric Froehlich currently living on a prayer. Our unbiased producer, not cringing at the sound of Eric losing here.
So, I mean, again, we're in a situation where Tarka Red could draw 3 lands in a row. And if Randy draws 3 lands in a row, Eric could find a way back into this game. Anything but 3 lands in a row, and Randy's probably going to win because, virtually any card is just a massive hit here. There's the first land in the row. Obviously, Eric has the roast for the Hooting Mandrills and a blocker for one of the Swift Spears and a dig. But, you're talking about, at this point, 80% of his deck is just an absolute killer. So
yeah, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 lands gone for Randy, who I believe is running 22 lands total. 22 lands total, yeah. Now this is gonna be a really good turn for Eric. Like you mentioned, this is the pivotal turn here. He gets to roast the Hooting Mandrills, play out a Jace, which can block the Monastery Swift Spears should Randy not draw anything. But that's gonna do it, kids. Fiery Impulse off the top is going to kill the Jace, double trigger the Monastery Swift Spears, and
Randy kind
Buehler,
enough to do that immediately and not make Eric sit for 15 seconds. I guess once it's the match, then you finish them off. I respect
exactly.
that.
So Randy Buehler taking the match 2-1 there over Eric Froehlich.
Yeah, and we saw there, obviously the power of being on the play game 3. Eric's decision, not to roast on turn 2 was both. He's both punished for it and then validated because Randy did have the Hooting Mandrills. So it'd be interesting to see if he would have done that differently in retrospect. Although, given how many lands he ended up drawing from his initial hand, I don't think that Eric could have won anyway.
Yeah, great point. That's going to be it for round 5. We have one more match left, folks. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for some more Super League championships.